Hello, I'm Maggie, and this is my son Leo's story. Leo was the firstborn child of a twin pregnancy born in August 2010. At the time, I was a 35-year-old mother with placenta previa, otherwise in good health during my pregnancy. Due to placenta previa, the doctors were unable to distinguish between Braxton Hicks versus preterm labor, and for the safety of Leo, or the babies, they performed a C-section at 36 weeks and 4 days. I suffered postpartum hemorrhaging, requiring multiple blood transfusions and emergency intervention following the delivery, but both children were safe. And Leo's twin sister, who's with us here today, is typically developing. Leo's first cousin, who was born in Greece, his father's sister's son, was born premature at 32 weeks in May 2011 and developed seizures at 2 months of age. He suffered seizures refractory to medicine. He experienced continuous seizure activity throughout his lifetime and passed away at 10 months. The post-mortem autopsy was unable to determine the cause of death, and the genetic testing results were unremarkable. So this is Leo's twin sister, who's with us here today. And this is Leo's genetic twin sister, Emma, who shares the same SCN8A variant, and she's with us here today. We didn't stage this photo. This was probably taken 7 years apart. That's Emma on the left, and that's Leo on the left, both passengers in the red Jeep. In hindsight, after being questioned by a geneticist about whether or not we experienced in utero seizures, looking back, our SCN8A journey started at our 20-week ultrasound. During the ultrasound, we wanted to determine the gender. Twin B was very easy to find. It was a girl. Twin A, on the other hand, the technician had difficulty determining the sex because of too much movement that the tech had never seen before. The ultrasound was stopped. The technician went to the back to converse with the doctor. They came back and said the ultrasound looked fine, but if we wanted to find out the sex of the baby, we needed to rebook, as the baby was overly active today. Our next experience with SCN8A was at 8 months in utero while in a movie theater. Baby A started this rhythmical contracture on my right side during a loud scene. Being my first pregnancy, I thought I was having contractures. So we timed the contractures, which lasted over a minute, and then there were no more. So I was about 32 weeks at the time. Leo's birth weight was 6.7 pounds. His APGAR scores were normal, and he was able to bottle feed successfully. 5 hours following the delivery, the nurse noticed excessive jitteriness and blueness around the mouth and sent Leo to NICU for observation. So 5 days of extensive testing were performed. The results were interpreted as unremarkable, and Leo was discharged. 2 months later, we returned to ER with blueness around the mouth, and in hindsight, it was a seizure. The doctor witnessed 3 seizures, but needed an EEG to confirm the findings. The EEG was performed and was unremarkable. At this time, GERD was added to the diagnosis, and a phenobarbital prescription added to see if we could control the episodes. He was discharged without a definitive diagnosis. So seizures stopped for about 7 days, but reappeared, increasing to 6 times a day, always upon awakening. He was readmitted to the hospital for further evaluation. We had a lumbar puncture, MRI, extensive genetic and metabolic testing, and all were considered unremarkable. After a 24-hour EEG, a seizure was caught at 2 months of age, and Leo was diagnosed with a seizure disorder of unknown cause. Between 2 to 11 months of age, seizures were poorly controlled. Phenobarbital was always in therapeutic range, but never therapeutic. Clobazam was added, but never helped. So due to poor seizure control, a new anti-seizure medication, Keppra, was added, and it took on a life of its own. It triggered a quasi-status where Leo was not completely unconscious, but was unable to get into a deep sleep cycle and suffered continuous seizures. Seizures increased to hundreds a day, accompanied with inconsolable crying, and in addition, his extremities were paralyzed in bilateral contractures. 3 ER visits later and several phenobarb loads later, things got worse. IV phosphenatone was finally administered in ER. Leo stabilized and finally fell asleep into a deep sleep, sleeping 12 hours, probably the first time he got some sleep in about a month. His hands finally released as he stopped sneezing. We completely removed the Keppra and Topamax was added. Before Keppra, Leo could sit. Before Keppra, Leo could talk. And before Keppra, Leo could clap his hands. After Keppra, Leo relearned how to sit, but Leo has not relearned how to talk, and Leo has not relearned how to clap his hands. After Keppra, Leo was given Topamax. While on Topamax, Leo went nearly a year without tonic-clonic seizures, but still had several breakthrough partials, which we were in denial about. During the year, he made developmental gains like taking his first steps and communicating using his assistive communication device. And then in December 2012, Leo's seizures returned and he was unable to gain control for 6 months. During this time, he was also diagnosed with SCN8A epilepsy. We got a referral to the Ketogenic clinic. We maxed out on Topamax, phenobarbital, and increased clobazam with no significant seizure control. So for 6 months, Leo experienced repetitive cycles which included seizure, vomiting, postictal fever, seizure, then we would head to the ER for a visit, IV phosphenatone load was given, and then he would have a honeymoon phase with seizure relief between 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3, and then the cycle would repeat again. So with Leo, it was all or nothing. Once the seizures started, Leo was unable to return to baseline without IV phosphenatone load, and Ativan at home made things worse. In May 2013, we started the ketogenic diet while being on a wait list for 5 months. The benefits of he's actually on the medium chain triglyceride ketogenic diet. The benefits were improved seizure control. We no longer required rescue meds or ER visits. Leo was able to return to baseline on his own, and this lasted for 2.5 years. During our last SCN8A family gathering in December 2015, Leo's seizures started to ramp up and seized daily for 3 days while I was here at the conference. We tweaked his ketogenic diet with no improvement. In January 2016, the seizures got worse. So it was his first seizure-related ER visit in 2.5 years since starting the ketogenic diet with a cluster of 8 partial seizures. The rescue med this time was a fat bomb. In ER, the keto team added a large amount of fat of 12.5 grams of base cell margarine twice daily, just the margarine, not the bread. And it stopped the clusters, and Leo remained seizure-free for a week. My take-home point from the SCN8 gathering last year was that you start with the meds that you know work for SCN8A. Given Leo's history of repetitive seizure cycles and the fact that tweaking the keto diet was no longer providing long-term seizure relief, I asked for Leo to be started on a sodium channel blocker. We started Trileptal, and Leo had immediate success. Leo has had less seizures this year than that one day in ER back in January. Leo experienced a few breakthrough seizures while trying to wean phenobarbital, but we believe that Trileptal being too low is why we saw breakthroughs. Since then, we've increased Leo's Trileptal levels during our last wean, and he did not experience any seizures. Leo is regaining skill again. He is starting to stand, he's using his walker, he's learning how to read, write, and loves core patterning within the math curriculum with basic addition and subtraction. He is homeschooled plus attends conductive education 4 days a week and performs extensive neuro rehab 12 hours a week. But most importantly, he's the happiest person I know. And my daughter said, I'm the happiest person that you know. So with twins, you always have to say there's two. I often wonder what would have happened if Leo was diagnosed with SCN8A during his 20-week ultrasound, or even during his my eighth month of pregnancy when I felt his first seizure. Could we have figured out a way to start off with a sodium channel blocker while I was pregnant? Could we have started Leo on a sodium channel blocker the minute he was born? Could we have tried a sodium channel blocker instead of Keppra at 11 months of age? I often wonder, when IV phosphenatone was successful, why didn't we start on a sodium channel blocker at that time? But instead, we waited for 6 months for the keto diet. Many gains have been made since Leo started his journey. Life keeps getting better, and I'm more hopeful than ever that we can continue making progress in this small group. Thank you.